We turn our focus now on the tightening of financial compliance laws since South Africa's greylisting. Entities are now looking at ramping up systems above just obligations linked to the existing FICA laws. Debtsource CEO Frank Knight joins us for this discussion. Thank you so much for your time and good morning, Frank. The starting point would be how much has been done in terms of making the necessary adjustments under FICA that would dictate that South Africa is closer to working off that grey list.
Yeah, very good morning to you, and thank you so much for having me. So when the Financial Action Task Force (FATF), the group of 7 international task force, did the assessment on South Africa and converted us to a grey listing, there were basically 8 issues that they raised, 8 areas of strategic deficiencies, as they call it, that South Africa needs to amend. And some of them are more compliant. Some of them are including a wider scope of accountable institutions, like at the moment, for instance, anyone that grants credit facilities, or if you are an estate agency, or even if you sell cryptocurrency, you've now also been included as an accountable institution, so that virtually all financial transactions that take place within the economy become reportable institutions. And that's a really important part both for South Africa and then also as part of coming off the grey list.
What's also important is the speed at which the financial services sector, along with the state, act to make those adjustments and comply with what the FATF has indicated South Africa needs to tighten. Let's talk a bit about the pace at which everybody needs to move at to ensure that regulations are tightened.
Yeah, correct. So the Financial Action Task Force have kind of given us 3 years to get our house in order. But what happens is that the local Financial Intelligence Center reports back to them as progress is being made. And of course, the quicker that we make progress, the quicker we kind of can get off that grey listing. And of course, it's also important to remember that even though it's good to comply to get off the grey listing from an international trade perspective, the point is for South Africa that we really want to get off the grey listing because we want to not aid and abet terrorism and money laundering transactions. We don't want our steel companies to be selling, the arms that kill other people's kids somewhere in the world from a terrorism or the proceeds of money laundering. And so those are the principles that are really important to us. So even though they've given us the 3-year period of time, we need to all get our act together as quickly as possible and get off this list.
Is it achievable, though, at a tangible level and a practical one, that within 3 years, South Africa would have had enough time to make the necessary changes needed?
It's a great question, and this is South Africa, right? So just to be clear, I mean, after grey listing comes blacklisting. So just to give you an idea of who the countries are that are on the blacklisting scale at the moment, we're talking about North Korea, we're talking about Iran, and we're talking about Myanmar. And then if we talk about some of the other countries that are on the grey listing, that would be countries like the United Arab Emirates, maybe countries like Congo, Nigeria, etc. And then in the case of countries like Cambodia and Morocco, we have seen them come off the grey listing quite quickly. These are really good principles to try and achieve within our economy. It's amazing if we can stop a crime, obviously, as the crime is happening, or by the police, then, catching the perpetrators. But just there is a financial paper trail. And that's what we're trying to do within this process, to kind of stop that financial paper trail. And that's the really exciting part, I think, for South Africa. How long will it take us to get off this list? Well, it's not something I can comment on. It's very doable, though.
Understandably so, and the difficulty then becomes there are bills that are still awaiting the green light from Parliament. Those two need to be, speeded up, and I'm interested in finding out whether there's any pressure from the financial service sector in South Africa to push government along.
So to be honest, the pressure is coming the other way at the moment, certainly in our experience. So government legislated, gazetted, I should rather say, quite a few amendments to the Act towards the end of last year. They have given companies, because it's a very wide spectrum of companies that are going to be affected, they have given those companies 18 months to kind of get their houses in order. So you can see kind of working towards that 3-year timescale. So at the moment, I think the Financial Intelligence Center is kind of pushing this agenda, and I don't specifically think that the financial services sector themselves are pushing it. You will not be surprised if I tell you that no company in the world asks for additional regulations, even if it is the right thing to do.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Frank Knight is the CEO at Debtsource, talking to us about efforts that are made in the financial service sector to get regulations in order for South Africa to get off the grey list.